Welcome to a new episode of Elevate Your Path with past presidents of NIRSA. I'm Michael Brito with the Rec Chat Committee, and today our guest is Greg Jordan. Greg, may you please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everybody. How are you? My name is Greg Jordan. I currently serve as the Director of University Recreation and Wellbeing at Oakland University. And Oakland University is a state-supported institution about 30 miles north of Detroit. We are not in California. So that's my background. I was the NIRSA President in 2005, 2006, when the annual conference was in Louisville, Kentucky in 2006.
Nice, wonderful. First question, how did you get into campus recreation and what was your first year as a member?
Okay. Well, my path into campus recreation, I transferred to Indiana University from a small school in Minnesota, Hamline University. I transferred after 2 years at Minnesota to Indiana and I needed a job. And I was a physical education major at the time because, back in those days, you only had a choice of physical education or recreation. Sport management didn't exist and some of the things we have today. So I was looking for a job, walked into the Hyper building at Indiana, and there was a sign, hey, looking for a job? Intramural sports official, flag football, $1.65 an hour. Go for it. So I walked into the intramural office and filled out an application and I was hired. So my first job was really as an intramural official doing flag football, and then I did softball in the spring terms because in the winter I was a club hockey player. So I got into rec both as an employee intramural and then as a sport club participant. So I was a member of the IU Hockey Club, played 3 seasons for them, and I got into some leadership roles. I ended up serving as president of the club hockey program. And as well as then I became an intramural supervisor. So I kind of gradually worked my way up at Indiana. So in my first year as a member of NIRSA, my first annual conference was in 1978 in Chicago. And actually I was from Chicago. So the Indiana staff, we stayed at my parents' house in Northbrook, which is about 20 miles north, and we commuted in every day. But it was at a Sheraton Hotel in downtown Chicago. But that wasn't my first NIRSA experience. As an undergrad, I really didn't know much about NIRSA, not like the students of today. However, I knew a little bit about it because the director at Indiana at the time was Rich Malt, who was a regional vice president of Region 4 back in the day when NIRSA only had 4 regions. So I knew a little bit about it, but Rich Mall and a guy named Steve Kintig, and who ended up being the director at TCU, and Chuck Gordon and I went over to Ohio, to Dayton, Ohio, to go to the ORSA workshop, Ohio Rec Sports Association. It was their second workshop in 1977. And there I met future NIRSA presidents and future honor award recipients. Mary Daniels, first woman president of NIRSA. I met Jeff Vestley, Larry Prio, and a lot of people know J. Michael Dunn. At my first NIRSA event, I met all those individuals and got to interact with them in 1977. And that helped me drink the NIRSA Kool-Aid to get involved in the association and in the profession.
Understandably so. Wow, that's a big event to start off with.
Absolutely.
So did you have a graduate assistantship, and what was your title?
Yeah, I was fortunate, some of it's being in the right spot at the right time. So upon my completion of my undergraduate degree, I thought I was going to be a physical education teacher. Like I said, that was my major. And after I student taught, I learned that I really didn't want to be a teacher, which is really not a good time to learn that because that's the last thing you do before you graduate. So at the time, Indiana created a kind of a super graduate assistantship and offered it to me. I was the club sport coordinator as a graduate assistant at Indiana University. And back in the day, it was in Indiana, that was a 1-year program. So it was a 1-year appointment. And so all I did was supervise and oversee the club sports at the time. So both my degrees, my undergraduate and graduate degree, were from Indiana University.
Okay, great. So what experiences did you have personally, professionally that that made you feel qualified for NIRSA President? And then what was it that made you actually decide to apply?
Yeah. Well, that wasn't my first aspiration to become NIRSA President. I think that's something that evolves as time goes on. So, meeting the people that I mentioned at my first session and my first experience, and knowing I worked for Kathy Bayless at Indiana. Kathy was an assistant director at the time, and I was a student employee. And Kathy today, 50 years later, is still the director at Indiana University. A NIRSA legend and an honor award recipient.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an awful lot of mentors and people who were encouraging the growth of the profession, the importance of what we were doing. Things were a lot different back then because we were competing with physical education programs and athletic programs for spaces in our facilities, because rec centers didn't exist in the early 70s, not like they do today. So it was really a lot different then. So having employment opportunities and finding out that, boy, I really got excited about this and the value of what we were doing. So that's just what got me involved in it. And then that created opportunities. As a student, I was an officer in the Sport Club Federation, and I was an officer in my sport club, as I mentioned. As a young professional, got to go on to committees and have opportunities. Fast forward a little bit, when I moved to Ohio as a Bowling Green State University for 16 years before I was here at Oakland, I became state director in Ohio. I served as state director in Indiana. State director back in those days was a heck of a lot different than it is now. And there were a lot less people who were vying for these kind of positions. It wasn't quite as competitive as it is today. But I had those opportunities. I also was a intramural, being a sport official. And I also did ice hockey for 20 years. After I graduated, did high school and collegiate hockey. I became a member of the bylaws committee. And back in the days, it was nominations and bylaws committee. So we nominations, elections, and bylaws, excuse me. And so we nominated people, we elected them, and we also oversaw the bylaws. And I think there was a natural connection between sport officiating and bylaws, because they're basically the rule books. The bylaws are the rule book for NIRSA, where you have, so you have to follow rules, and there's logic behind them. And that really contributed to me getting involved in the leadership and the association, and being a young professional and being visible and being present, which then encouraged people to encourage me to stand for office, to consider standing for office. I thought I was qualified, but until I was elected NIRSA president, I was 0 for 3 in standing for office. I stood for Region 1 vice president when I was in Ohio in 1981 in Philadelphia. And that's back in the day, again, when NIRSA only had 4 regions. I think we went to 6 regions in the mid 80s. But I stood against Patty Holmes, 2 Ohio people in Region 1. Patty, I voted for Patty. I thought she was better than me, right? I also submitted to stand for region vice president and president-elect twice, and was not even slated by the nominations committee. So that didn't discourage me, and I tell that story now because a lot of people apply for positions within NIRSA and are not selected. Don't be discouraged. We're not saying no. We're just saying not right now. It's like a job hunt. Sometimes there's somebody who's more qualified or more experienced than you, and that's okay. So I stuck with it and ended up, standing for NIRSA president in 2004 in Albuquerque, and I was elected. So, make a long story short, I think there was an awful lot of opportunities to serve in committees. I was on the finance committee, like I said, the bylaws committee several times, nominations committees, things like that. So I was just involved in the association business at the state and regional and national level. And that just got to the point where the next logical position was NIRSA president.
Wow, a lot of involvement there. Wow.
Yeah.
So now that you're NIRSA president, thinking back, what was your favorite part of being NIRSA president? And then what was the hardest part?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I should point out that the serving as NIRSA president, it's really a 3-year term. You serve as in the day, it was president-elect president and then immediate past president. Of course, our current model has it that you are president-elect, president designee, and then president. But basically, still, it's a 3-year commitment. So it's not just a 1 year. And I look at probably the favorite part of being serving the board and serving our association in that regard was I was able to visit an awful lot of campuses as part of, being on the board and representing the board at state and regional workshops. So I think if I recall correctly, I visited between 25 and 30 campuses. And so one of the advantages of serving on NIRSA leadership is that you're exposed to an awful lot of things like other campuses, other programs that you learn about. It's a professional development opportunity for yourself as well. And I would take what I would see and took a lot of pictures and got a lot of documents and things like that. And I'd bring them back to our campus and we would discuss them and take the best of other programs and services and try to incorporate it into what we did at Oakland University. That was, that's something we do there's no original idea in NIRSA. We just steal each other's ideas.
Right.
And then tweak them to our individual campus. So, having the chance to, just meet hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of members and go to places was just a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of in this term. The hardest part for me personally was as a president-elect, you had to populate all the committees for the following year. That was a very, very difficult task. And if Tammy Garska happens to be listening to this or anybody who was on the board, I never got the committee charges out to the committees the next year. So they're still waiting for them here 15 years later. And really what my philosophy was, hey, the committee should know what they need to do. Let them figure it out. But placing, maybe 200, 250 members into committees at the time was a big jigsaw puzzle. And, you probably had 300-400 people who were applying for committee positions. So you had to say no to some people, and that was a difficult thing. So I struggled with the committee process at the time. That was my biggest challenge.
I certainly do enjoy the travel aspect of this field. It's great to meet people and, see different things.
Absolutely.
So while you were NIRSA president and during the whole 3-year commitment, how did you handle your everyday job and then your NIRSA role at the same time?
Yeah, boy, that's a great question because people come up, when you're considering standing for office or getting involved, what's the time commitment to it?
Right.
And that's a great question. And a lot of times people choose to stand for office or choose to get involved because of what's going on in their life, both personally and professionally. And at times, maybe it's not the best time to do so. So to answer your question, I think it's twofold. One, you need the support of your family. And, at the time, I had 2 younger children, and my wife was very supportive of me being gone and involved as much as I had to be. So that was a blessing that I had the support from home. And then you need it from work as well. And truly, it's a total staff effort when a member of a staff at the university is involved in a significant leadership role. Other people need to be involved. And so I knew that the staff I had at the time at Oakland University could handle me being gone. And I think about it too, the communication was a little different back in the day too. Again, 15 years ago, we don't have, the smartphones and everything like we did now. We did have cell phones and things like that. Some of them were the big ones that you had to hold up to your ear, But it was a little harder to communicate, and certainly we didn't have the virtual world that we have today. But having the support of your staff so that when you were gone and you had to devote time towards NIRSA, that your day-to-day services on your campus weren't negatively impacted by you being involved in that.
Right. Right. Good point. Good point there. It takes a village sometimes with these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm. So you briefly talked about this here and there, but how has NIRSA changed since you joined? And then what excites you about NIRSA's future?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest changes happened in 2008, 2009, when we went to the Future First. I went through a 2 or 3 year process of redesigning the governance of NIRSA. And then for a long time, we were saying the new governance. Well, no, that's how we govern today. And I guess one of the things I would tell you is that in today's NIRSA, there are, 60, 70, 80 different significant leadership opportunities available to our members. Where when I was coming up, you had a board of directors that had 8 people on it. And when I served as NIRSA president, the board was 11 people. And so, the work of what was once being done by 11 people is now being done by, 50, 60, 70 people, because you now have the member network, the assembly, the NIRSA Services Corporation, the foundation board has expanded. So as well as the NIRSA board of directors. Actually, the NIRSA board is smaller. But there's so many more leadership opportunities, at that higher level. But then you also need that at the committee work level, and so there's many more committees within the foundation, within the Services Corporation, as well as NIRSA itself. So, but our association is a heck of a lot bigger, because I think one of the biggest significant differences in our field, or our profession, is look at the impact that we have on our campuses, in the facilities and the programs and services that are now dedicated to the health and well-being of our student population. And I would say it this way also. Collegiate recreation is one of the very few departments in a university that serve the entire campus community, where we serve not only the students, our primary focus, but we all serve the university faculty and staff. Many of us serve communities and alumni bases as well. But it's just as important for faculty and staff to be healthy and fit and conscious of their well-being, because that helps them perform their services better in whatever role you are, whether you're a custodian in a residence hall or a tenured faculty member in physics. You need to be on your game all the time to provide the service to the students to make their experience at your institution important. So collegiate recreation has just advanced so far in those kind of recognition of what we do and the impact we have on our campus. That's the biggest change, I think. And then I'll add one more point and conclude this question. Looking forward to what's life going to be like post-pandemic. Well, collegiate recreation, still a lot unknown, but collegiate recreation is going to play an integral role in the successful recovery from the pandemic. We have been already for the past 12 months with what we've been able to do. But moving forward, health and well-being is so critically important in life. And what we can offer and what we do is so vital, and it's really coming to the forefront. And I think NIRSA is helping that, as a professional association, is helping moving that along.
Very true. Very true. All right. And so that's all the questions I have for that. I do have right now our rapid fire section. So you just tell me what comes to mind when I ask you this question. So standout or favorite NIRSA conference? If you could
favorite NIRSA conference. Oh, I've been to 30, 31 or 32 of them. So I think one was Albuquerque when I was elected president. Now, back in the day, the NIRSA conference was 5 days, not 4. Wow. So we were there an extra day. And then as candidates and board members, you used to come in, early and stay late. So I was there like 10 days. Wow. And so we got to see a lot of the city, got to socialize a lot. And it was a celebration with the success of my election. So that one sticks out quite a bit in my mind. But you know what? Truth be told, there's no such thing as a bad NIRSA conference.
Right.
Maybe some difficult things happen there, but you know what? Every year there's a great experience that I can hang a memory on. So all of them is my real answer.
There you go. There you go. Do you have a favorite season of the year?
No, actually, I love them all, and I've been a Midwesterner my entire life. I've lived in all through Region 3. I was born in Illinois, worked in Indiana, and Ohio, and Michigan. And so the beauty of it is that every 9 or 10 weeks the season changes.
Right.
And so if you get, I don't get tired of them because they don't last that long. So and being a hockey player, I love winter. And being I golfed quite a bit throughout my life, so I love summer just as much. So love them all, and that's why I live in the Midwest. I don't see ever living in Texas or Florida or someplace way in the South that only has one season of hot.
That's true. Go-to breakfast routine.
Go-to breakfast routine. Love hash browns, 2 eggs over easy, and bacon. Whether I'm, of course, I haven't gone out to a restaurant in 13 months, but whether we go out for breakfast or whether I make it at home, that's my go-to breakfast.
Oh, good, classic. Favorite activity on campus?
Favorite activity on campus. Well, one of the things, it's self-serving being a sponsored event from our department, but annually we do a very fun event called the Poker Walk for employees. And basically we put on an event there. We get about 500-600 colleagues to participate, and they dress up in costumes and they have fun team names, and they go on a fun walk for like 1.5 miles. And I think it's every quarter mile, they get some chips, and they get to turn in the chips to get a poker hand. And I've been a poker dealer for the first 11 years of it. So I get to see everybody as being the dealer for poker, and it's just an awful lot of fun.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
And favorite pizza topping?
Favorite sausage.
All right.
Italian sausage.
And favorite city to travel to?
Favorite Chicago. I'm from Chicago, northern suburbs, but I love to go back to Chicago. Cubs game, if you can get a ticket. Bears, Blackhawks, you name it. Love Chicago. Some great restaurants there. Great Chicago dogs, great ribs. Hackney burger, fun stuff.
I've never been, but I need to. It's on my list.
Oh man. Well, again, the first NIRSA conferences in Chicago. There's been a lot of Region 3 student lead-ons in Chicago. Anytime I have a chance to go to Chicago, I will.
That's great. So that's the end of this. Greg, thank you so much for sharing your journey, talking about the history of NIRSA. It was just a lot of good insight.
Great. Well, thanks. I appreciate being invited, and I guess I would encourage anybody who's considering serving our association. It's worth the investment in time. There's many ways to do it. The NIRSA President happens to be one, but there's hundreds of different ways to serve our association. And I would encourage each and every one of you to find a way to give back to your association, because I think that's one reason why a lot of people do it, is that they're giving back from what they're getting, as a member and as a professional. So thank you, Mike, and the committee for selecting me.
Right. Thank you. Very true. Excuse me. To the audience, thank you for watching this latest episode of Elevate Your Path. Make sure to follow RegChat on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Take care and stay safe.